Let's go to Liberia now, where polls have opened in the country's presidential and legislative elections. Nearly 2.2 million people are registered to vote. President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is stepping down after 12 years in office, and a total of 20 presidential candidates are vying to succeed her. They include ex-football star George Weah, the Vice-President Joseph Boakai, as well as Prince Johnson, a former rebel leader. Campaigning has been dominated by promises to tackle poverty, corruption and guarantee stability in the West African state. Well, for more on this high-stakes election, we're now joined by CGTN's Robert Nagila, live for us in the capital, Monrovia. Robert, we understand that polls opened a few hours ago. How is the exercise going so far?
A very good afternoon, Lindy. That's right. Polling stations open their gates at about 8 a.m. local time. However, there have been some challenges, as is expected, because one of the other things we need to take into consideration is that they are using a manual system of voting. Now, some of the challenges that have been experienced by those we've talked to who've already gone through the process are the length of time it's actually taken to not just go through the voting process, but to actually get to that stage where you're voting. However, having said that, people are still making lines. We've not had any major problems from any of the polling stations that we've visited, and polling will continue until about 6 p.m. This evening, after which we expect the counting of votes to then commence. Now, in terms of when to expect the results, preliminary results are expected by the end of this week or early next week, with the final results on or before October 25th. And they will be announced by the Electoral Commission here in Liberia. Lindy?
And of course, Robert, we know that there are 20 candidates vying to succeed Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Who are the frontrunners?
Absolutely right, Lindy. There are 20 candidates. Perhaps worthy of mention is that among the 20 candidates, one is a female, hoping obviously to emulate the predecessor, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Now, in terms of the front runners, there are 3 front runners. You've got current Vice-President Joseph Boakai. You also have George Weah, former international footballer. Now, what's interesting about George Weah is his choice for vice-presidential candidate. That is Jewel Taylor, the wife of Charles Taylor, former president, who's now serving a jail term, a 50-year jail term in a British prison. And finally, you have former Coca-Cola executive and current businessman, Andrew Cummings. Now, Andrew Cummings' story is one really interesting story, because it's just in the last couple of weeks or so that he's actually made a lot of ground, and this, we are told, is as a result of his policies. He's focusing on the economy, and he's promising to be all inclusive, to include all Liberians within national buildings. So it is a 3-way horse race. It's very tight, as we're made to understand at this moment, but we will only get to know after the voting is over and the counting is done as to what choice Liberians have decided to go. Lindy?
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much, Robert Nagila, live for us there in Monrovia.